The night started like any other at La Velura, the upscale Italian restaurant tucked in the heart of Manhattan. Crystal chandeliers glowed softly over white linen tables, and the sound of laughter mixed with the scent of garlic and wine. For Aisha Coleman, it was another long shift filled with demanding customers and fake smiles. She tied her apron, smoothed her curls into a bun, and took a deep breath before stepping onto the floor. "Table 5 needs their check, Aisha," called Sandra, another waitress. "And the manager's been watching you again." Aisha stiffened. Of course, Rick Dalton, the manager, was watching. He always did. The way his eyes followed her made her skin crawl. He masked his predatory glances behind fake professionalism, but everyone knew. The only reason he hadn't been reported was because Rick had friends in corporate, and the staff needed their paychecks. Aisha smiled politely at the couple on table 5, collected their plates, and turned toward the kitchen when Rick's voice sliced through the noise. "Aisha, my office, now." The entire staff froze for a split second. Rick rarely called anyone to his office during dinner hours unless it was serious or personal. Aisha's heartbeat quickened. "Yes, sir," she said quietly, and followed him past the kitchen, down the narrow hallway that led to the restrooms and his small, windowless office. But instead of stepping inside the office, Rick stopped near the restroom door. He turned, a sly smirk on his face. "Actually, let's talk in here. More private." Aisha frowned. "Sir, I don't think—" "Now, Aisha." His tone darkened. She glanced around. No one was nearby. The hallway was empty, the buzz of the dining room muffled by the walls. Reluctantly, she stepped inside the restroom. The door clicked shut behind them. Rick leaned against the counter, eyes roaming. "You've got an attitude lately," he said. "Late clock-ins, slow tables. Maybe you need a reminder who runs this place." "I've done nothing wrong," Aisha said firmly, backing up slightly. "And if this is about my shift schedule, we can discuss it professionally." Rick laughed, low and cruel. "Professional, sweetheart? I'm giving you a chance to keep your job." He reached forward, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Aisha slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me!" The door suddenly burst open. It was Marta, the line cook, her eyes wide. "Rick, we need you up front." She stopped when she saw Aisha's expression, then Rick's hand frozen mid-air. "Oh, sorry." Rick barked, "Get out!" and slammed the door. Aisha took the moment to move toward the exit, but Rick grabbed her arm roughly. "Let me go," she shouted, trying to yank free. Her scream echoed through the tiled walls. Rick's face twisted. "You're done here," he hissed. "I'll make sure you never work in this city again." But what neither of them realized was that someone had heard everything. Someone sitting just a few feet away at table 7. In the dining room, a man in a black suit paused mid-conversation. His name was Marcus Viper Cole, and the entire New York underworld whispered his name with respect and fear. Few knew what he looked like outside the shadows. Fewer still would have guessed that the calm, silent man sipping wine in the corner was one of the most feared mafia bosses on the East Coast. His phone buzzed. A message flashed on screen from his security detail. "Boss, your wife's name just got called to the back. Manager seems rough." "Want me to check?" Marcus's hand stilled. His eyes lifted slowly toward the hallway. His wife's name, Aisha. Every muscle in his body went cold. Without a word, he stood up from the table. The restaurant's noise faded around him as he adjusted his suit jacket. His security team at the bar straightened immediately, recognizing the shift in his expression. "Sir?" one of them asked. Marcus didn't answer. He started walking, calm, deliberate steps that silenced nearby chatter. The air seemed to thicken as he approached the hallway. Inside the restroom, Aisha finally broke free from Rick's grip. "You're going to regret this," she spat, reaching for the door handle. Rick sneered. "Big words for a waitress. You think anyone's going to believe you over me?" But before she could respond, the door swung open violently, slamming against the wall with a thunderous crack. Rick's smirk vanished. Standing in the doorway was a tall, broad man in a dark, tailored suit. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with lethal fury. "Marcus?" Aisha gasped in disbelief. Rick blinked, confused. "Who the hell?" Marcus stepped forward, his voice quiet, cold, and razor-sharp. "Take your hands off my wife." The restaurant fell silent beyond the hallway as the tension exploded like a storm ready to break. For a moment, silence consumed everything. The buzzing lights overhead, the faint music from the dining room, none of it existed. Only the sound of Aisha's quickened breathing and Rick's shallow gasp filled the air. Rick blinked twice, his mind scrambling to process what the stranger had just said. My wife? His eyes darted between Aisha and the man blocking the door. Wait a second, he stammered, trying to regain composure. Sir, this is a private staff area. You can't just… Marcus took another step forward. He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. His voice carried a quiet authority that cut deeper than any threat. I said, he repeated, take your hands off my wife. Rick's grip loosened instantly, but Marcus didn't stop. His tall frame seemed to fill the entire doorway as he moved closer. The scent of his expensive cologne mingled with the fear that suddenly thickened the air. Aisha stepped back, her eyes wide with shock and relief. Marcus, He raised a hand gently, silencing her. His gaze never left Rick. Are you the one who touched her? Rick swallowed hard. Look, man, I think you're misunderstanding. We were just what? Marcus's tone hardened. Just harassing her? Just threatening her job? Just putting your filthy hands where they don't belong? Rick's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at Aisha as if hoping she'd come to his rescue, but she crossed her arms and glared back. Answer him, she said bitterly. Marcus's expression didn't change, calm, collected, like a man who had dealt with worse 1,000 times before. But his eyes, they were dangerous, the kind of eyes that had seen blood, betrayal, and power up close. I didn't mean anything, Rick stammered. I was trying to talk to her about her attitude. Marcus tilted his head slightly. Your attitude problem is about to get you buried. Rick froze, uncertain if he'd heard correctly. Excuse me? Marcus took another step, now only inches away. His voice was almost a whisper. You should start praying right now. Because if my men heard my wife scream, you're already out of time. Right on cue, 2 men in black suits appeared in the hallway. Luca and Vince, Marcus's trusted bodyguards, stood like statues behind him. Their mere presence drew whispers from the restaurant staff, who peeked nervously from around corners. One of them spoke softly. Boss, you want us to handle this? Rick's eyes darted between the 3 men, realizing something was very wrong. Boss, he muttered under his breath, suddenly pale. Aisha saw his expression shift from arrogance to raw fear. She stepped closer to Marcus, finally finding her voice. Marcus, please, don't make a scene. He's not worth it. Marcus looked at her then, a brief flicker of warmth softening his hard features. He laid hands on you, Aisha. I know, she said quietly, but I don't want your world mixing with mine. Not here. Not like this. That stopped him for a second. The Mafia boss and the Waitress, 2 worlds that never should have collided, and yet here they were. Rick, sensing a sliver of escape, tried to slip toward the door. Vince moved immediately, blocking him. Not so fast, he said in a low growl. Marcus leaned slightly toward Rick. You think you can humiliate women, threaten them, and get away with it because you wear a tie and hide behind corporate power? Rick didn't respond. His knees trembled. Marcus continued, voice low but clear. Let me tell you a secret. In my world, respect is everything. You break that, and you lose everything. Aisha touched Marcus's arm, her hand trembling slightly. He's not worth blood on your hands, she whispered. Marcus's jaw clenched. He exhaled slowly, eyes closing for a moment. Then he opened them again. Steel returned to his gaze. Fine, he said coldly. No blood. He turned to Luca. Find the owner. I want him here in 5 minutes. Rick's heart dropped. Wait, no, please, he sputtered. You don't understand. I was just trying to… Marcus cut him off with a sharp gesture. If you speak again, I'll forget I promised my wife no blood. Within minutes, the restaurant's general manager, Mr. Harrington, rushed in, an older man in a tailored suit, clearly terrified. Mr. Cole, he said breathlessly. I didn't realize you were dining with us tonight. Is something wrong? Marcus turned slowly toward him, his tone measured. One of your managers just dragged my wife into a bathroom. Does that sound wrong to you? Harrington's face went white. Your wife? His eyes darted toward Aisha, then Rick. Oh, dear God. Rick started to protest. Sir, it's not what it looks like. Quiet, Harrington snapped. You're finished, Rick. Effective immediately. But, sir, I said quiet, Harrington barked. He turned to Marcus, his voice shaking. Mr. Cole, I assure you this man will never step foot in this restaurant again. I'll handle it personally. Marcus nodded once, slow and deliberate. See that you do. Rick looked like a ghost as Harrington signaled security to escort him out. But before he could leave, Marcus stepped closer, his final words low and lethal. Next time you think about touching a woman against her will, Remember tonight, and remember me. Rick didn't dare reply. He stumbled away as the guards dragged him toward the exit. The restaurant was silent. Diners pretended to focus on their meals, but everyone had seen. Everyone had felt the storm that passed through. Marcus turned back to Aisha. His tone softened. You okay? She nodded slowly, tears forming. I am now. He brushed a tear from her cheek. Let's go home. As they walked out together, whispers followed. No one knew exactly who the man was, but the fear in their eyes said enough. And in the shadows outside, a black SUV idled. Luca opened the door for them, murmuring, Boss, word's gonna spread after this. Marcus simply replied. The drive back to their penthouse was wrapped in silence. The city lights flickered through the tinted windows as Marcus stared out, his jaw tight, the fury in his chest simmering like a volcano about to erupt. Aisha sat beside him, still shaken but trying to hold herself together. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap. Marcus, she began softly, I told you not to show up like that. You scared everyone. He didn't answer immediately. His reflection in the glass looked colder than she remembered. Finally, he said, He touched you, Aisha. That's not something I can ignore. I know, she whispered, looking down. But you promised me when we married you'd keep your world away from mine. Marcus turned toward her, his eyes softening slightly. I kept that promise. For years I let people think I was just a businessman. But tonight, when I heard you scream, everything went dark. I wasn't thinking as a Don, I was thinking as your husband. Tears welled in her eyes. And what happens now? Word will spread, someone will connect the dots. You being there, it could draw attention. Marcus leaned back, sighing. Attention doesn't scare me. What scares me is what might have happened if I hadn't walked in. The car fell silent again, the hum of the engine filling the... Luca, driving in the front, spoke quietly through the rearview mirror. Boss, you want us to keep an eye on that manager? Marcus didn't hesitate. No, he's finished. But make sure he stays gone. If he even breathes near her workplace again, bury the thought before it becomes a problem. Luca nodded once. Understood. Aisha glanced toward Marcus, uneasy with the phrasing. Marcus, please, no violence. Promise me. He met her gaze, the lines around his eyes softening. You have my word. They reached their penthouse overlooking the East River. Inside, the lights flicked on automatically, revealing sleek marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and an understated elegance that screamed old money and quiet power. Aisha walked straight to the kitchen, needing a moment to breathe. Marcus followed, removing his jacket and draping it over a chair. Do you know what it was like standing there? She said suddenly, her voice trembling. That man cornering me, thinking I was helpless. I wanted to scream, but then you showed up, and I saw something in your eyes that scared me even more. Marcus froze mid-step. What did you see? She turned toward him. That look, the one that means someone's about to disappear. I married you because I saw the man behind the name, Marcus. Not the mafia boss, the man who brought me flowers after I spilled coffee on his shirt. The man who took me to my favorite diner even though your guards hated it. Her voice cracked slightly. Don't let tonight drag you back into that darkness. Marcus's eyes softened. He reached for her hand, his voice quiet. You have no idea how many times you've pulled me out of that darkness, Aisha. But some things, they cross a line I can't ignore. She squeezed his hand, trying to steady him. Then handle it smartly, not with bullets. Use your power the way a man with true control does. End it clean. He nodded slowly. You're right. I'll handle it clean. But deep down, Aisha knew that meant something else entirely in Marcus's world. The next morning, the media buzzed with rumors. Word had spread from the staff at La Valura, how a mysterious man had stormed in, how the manager was fired on the spot, and how no one dared speak his name aloud. At the breakfast table, Aisha scrolled through her phone, uneasy. It's already online, she said quietly. Some blogs calling it the restaurant incident. They're saying a very important person intervened. They don't know it was you, yet. Marcus sipped his espresso calmly. Let them talk. People always fill silence with stories. By tomorrow they'll move on. But as he said it, Luca entered the room, his expression grim. Boss, we've got a problem. Marcus set his cup down. Talk. Rick Dalton didn't disappear quietly, Luca said. He was seen last night at a club in Brooklyn, drunk and running his mouth. He told people he's going to ruin that waitress and her husband. Claims he knows who you are. Aisha's face drained of color. He knows? Luca shook his head. Not everything, but he's hinting he's got something. Maybe a photo from the restaurant cameras. Maybe someone talking. Marcus's eyes went dark. So he wants to play brave. Aisha stood abruptly. Marcus, please, don't go after him. He turned to her, voice low but steady. He's threatening you now. That makes it my problem. Promise me, she insisted, her voice breaking. Promise me you won't handle it the old way. Marcus walked closer, brushing his thumb across her cheek. You married a man trying to change, Aisha. But I can't let anyone hurt you. She looked up at him, silent, knowing his version of protection was laced with danger. Luca cleared his throat. Boss, what's the move? Marcus's gaze hardened again. Find Dalton, bring him in, quietly. No scenes, no blood. I'll deal with him myself. Luca nodded and slipped out. Aisha stood still as Marcus adjusted his cuffs, his calm mask returning. He leaned in, kissed her forehead and whispered, Trust me. She wanted to, but she knew that when Marcus Cole said he'd handle it himself, the storm was far from over. And somewhere across the city, in a dingy Brooklyn bar, Rick Dalton laughed loudly, boasting to his drinking buddies. You think I'm scared of that guy? I know who he is. I'll make him wish he never set foot in my restaurant. Outside, a black car pulled up to the curb. Two men stepped out in silence, watching from the shadows. The war had just begun. Rain fell in thin silver lines across the streets of Brooklyn that night, smearing the neon reflections of bars and diners along the cracked pavement. Inside one of those bars, Rick Dalton sat hunched over a glass of whiskey, his tie undone, his words slurred with bitter rage. The few men around him laughed nervously as he ranted, unaware that their laughter was being drowned out by the low hum of a black SUV idling outside. Guy thinks he can walk into my place, Rick sneered, slamming his glass down. Just because he's got money and a pretty wife, he doesn't scare me. One of the men chuckled. You sure, Rick? That dude didn't look like someone you'd want to cross, Rick smirked. Please, he's just some slick Wall Street wannabe. I'll find out who he really is, and when I do, that waitress and her husband are finished. Nobody humiliates me like that. The bartender, an old man with wary eyes, quietly backed away and grabbed his phone. He'd seen the black SUV outside. He'd seen this kind of thing before. Moments later, the bar door creaked open. 3 men in tailored black coats stepped inside, bringing the rain with them. They didn't say a word. The atmosphere changed instantly. Every conversation died. Rick froze mid-sentence as the tallest of the 3, Luca, walked forward, removing his gloves. Rick Dalton, he said flatly. Rick tried to laugh. What, you guys here for a drink? Luca's expression didn't change. The boss wants a word. Boss? Rick repeated, suddenly nervous. Look, if this is about last night... Now! Luca interrupted. The other 2 men flanked him, and before Rick could react, they had him by the arms, leading him out through the rain and into the black SUV. The doors shut with a heavy thunk, sealing his fate. An hour later, the SUV pulled into an underground garage beneath a high-rise on the Upper East Side. Rick was dragged out, his protests drowned by the sound of thunder overhead. He was led through a private elevator that opened into a dimly lit room overlooking the city skyline. Marcus Cole stood near the window, his back turned, a glass of wine in his hand. His tailored black suit was spotless, his demeanor calm, as if this were just another business meeting. Sit, Marcus said without turning around. Rick hesitated until Luca pushed him toward the chair. Marcus finally turned. His gaze was cold but composed, every movement deliberate. Do you know who I am, Mr. Dalton? Rick tried to steady his voice. Look, man, I don't know what your game is, but dragging me here, that's kidnapping. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Kidnapping implies you have something worth taking. Rick blinked, trying to mask his fear with defiance. You can't just threaten me. I'll go to the cops. Marcus chuckled softly, shaking his head. The cops? You think they'll help you? Half of them owe me favors they'll never repay. That was when Rick's confidence cracked. His voice wavered. What do you want? Marcus set his glass down and walked closer, stopping just inches away. What I want, he said quietly, is simple. You're going to understand what respect means. Rick swallowed hard. I didn't mean to... Yes, you did, Marcus cut in sharply. You meant every word, every threat. You thought you could intimidate a woman because she works for you. You thought no one would stand up to you. But here's the thing, Rick. You made it personal. Rick opened his mouth to speak, but Marcus's next words froze him completely. Do you know what I used to be called? Marcus asked softly. They called me Viper. Because once I strike, no one forgets the bite. Rick's hands trembled. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was your wife. Marcus leaned in closer, his voice a whisper that sliced through the air. That's the thing, Rick. You should have treated her with respect regardless of who she was. A woman's worth isn't decided by the man standing next to her. For a long moment the room went silent. Rain drummed against the glass as Marcus stared into Rick's terrified eyes. Then, slowly, Marcus stepped back. Luca. Luca appeared instantly. Drive him out of the city, Marcus ordered. Give him enough cash for a bus ticket, he's finished here. If he ever steps foot in Manhattan again, he disappears. Rick sagged with relief. Thank you, I swear you'll never see me again. Marcus turned back to the window, his tone final. You're right about that. Luca led the trembling man out, and within minutes the SUV vanished into the storm. Later that night, Marcus stood alone on the balcony of his penthouse, the rain misting his face. Aisha appeared behind him, wrapped in a silk robe, her voice soft. It's over? He nodded slowly. He's gone. She stepped closer, resting a hand on his shoulder. Did you hurt him? Marcus shook his head. No, I wanted to, but I remembered what you said. Power isn't in violence. It's in restraint. A small smile tugged at her lips. You're learning. He turned toward her, cupping her face gently. You make me want to... They stood there for a long moment, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. For the first time in days, the storm inside Marcus began to fade. Come inside, she whispered. Let it go. He nodded, taking her hand as they walked back inside. But as he closed the balcony door behind them, Marcus's phone buzzed. A single message appeared from Luca. Dalton's gone. But someone followed us. Might not be over. Marcus stared at the screen, his calm expression returning, but his eyes darkened again. He set the phone face down, pulled Aisha close and murmured, Let's enjoy the peace while it lasts. Because in his world, peace was never permanent, only borrowed.